Hi guys, I'm here with Dr. Ginni Mansberg, Sydney GP, and we're here at the Butler in Potts Point, beautiful restaurant. We've just enjoyed an amazing lunch for the launch of Rexona Clinical Protection Anti-Perspirant Deodorant. And we've been talking all about sweat. I mean, how often do you get to talk about sweat and really learn a few facts? So,
not often enough.
Not often enough.
Should be doing it over lunch every day.
That's
really.
right. So, yeah. It was a little bit awkward when we were eating the pate and we were talking about talking about sweat, but I think it's really important that women talk about it and learn about it because we're not really supposed to sweat, and it's a bit of a taboo topic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's like body hair, right? Like you have it, but you're not meant to have it, so you pretend you don't have it because it makes you boyish. Anything that's boyish is bad, right?
Yeah, and you were saying that even in your practice, you often don't have people actually coming to you with sweat issues because they're too embarrassed.
Never, ever. I mean, it's interesting. Girls will come to me and tell me that they're having an affair, that they need a herpes test. Maybe they'll tell me that they're a little bit bloated because, you know, the thing that comes with bloating we don't do. But they also don't tell me about their sweat. And often it is a medical problem, so I do actually need to know about it. But in that case of the 0.6 to 1% of Aussie women who have hyperhidrosis, excessive sweating, that is potentially a medical problem. So you've got to talk to us about it.
Yeah, it's important. And so tell me, Ginni, why do we sweat? What's it all about?
Well, in theory, it's about cooling down. So the sweat is water, it goes and sits on your skin, it evaporates, it cools you down, happy days. But then you've got a second type of sweat, which comes from the apocrine gland, a different kind of sweat gland that sits mainly on hairy skin. So armpits, anogenital area, sorry, but it's there, I have to say.
We don't have that either. None of us have that area.
No, we don't have hair, after all. But the apocrine sweat, which has really an unknown function, it is really quite mysterious. I've never worked that out, Mother Nature, thank you. Because not only is it normal sweat with all the salts and the water, but they package it up with, or you package it up with, a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein, happy days for bacteria, they love it, smelly bacteria love that stuff, and out comes this kind of lovely yellow sweat that stains your underarms of your t-shirts, and is really quite unpleasant, and that's really the stuff we're trying to avoid.
And so something interesting as well, hairier people are sweatier generally.
Well, so those eccrine, the normal sweat glands are all over your body. They're in your, you know, in your scalp, they're on your face, they give you a shiny face, they can be between your breasts, on your back. But it turns out the apocrine glands, which are those ones that I told you about that have the protein and the fat in them, that only sit on hairy areas, particularly under the armpits and around the genitals, they come packaged up with hair and they discharge the sweat actually through the hair follicle, not through the pores. So in fact, you know, often the hairier you are, the more you will sweat because you have a lot more hair follicles and a lot more apocrine sweat glands.
So what can you do if sweating's a problem? What are the best ways to deal with excessive sweating, or not even just excessive sweating, but just being self-conscious about it?
Because if you do have excessive sweating, of course, what we would want to do is get you seen by a doctor, and then we've got a whole raft of everything from Botox, which is sounds pretty extreme, through to surgery. Oh my goodness.
So Botox under the underarms actually relax or paralyses the sweat glands, is that right?
Yeah, it's actually amazingly effective if you can A, afford it, and B, actually...
Although Medicare will give you a rebate?
You need to have stepped through some hoops. You really need to talk about that with your GP, not everybody. And even if you do get a Medicare rebate, it's pretty small compared to the massive outlay of the Botox in the first place.
For sure.
There's surgery, there's drugs, major side effects. And you really would be parking that and only considering it if you've got a massive issue with sweating. Let's say for the vast majority of us normal people who just want to control it on a day-to-day basis. Your main thing is actually going to be using an antiperspirant. And you've got to make sure that that antiperspirant is a good one. And when I say it's a good one, we're trying to block the sweat glands and signal to them that they do not need to produce more sweat. We've had enough, you can just cool it. And ideally, according to the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, we want 20% aluminium or more. I'm embracing myself.
Okay, so tell me, you've got to talk about aluminium. So there's a lot of worries, of course, around people worrying about breast cancer, Alzheimer's has been linked to as well. Is it true?
Well, it hasn't been linked to it. It's been linked to it in an email chain or a viral email, or just kind of, look, it did start from a legitimate place because when we were examining brains of people who had died with Alzheimer's disease under a microscope or breast cancer under a microscope, we apply a lot of stains just so we can see those cells a little bit better, and they often contain a little bit of aluminium. A lot of things contain aluminium, and it turns out that those cells have a huge amount of affinity for aluminium. So the aluminium from the stain just goes straight into the cells. And it made us think initially, wow, these are cells that are full of aluminium. So it turns out if you don't put those stains on, or if you put different stains that don't have aluminium,
it doesn't show up.
Yeah, there's not a lot of aluminium in those cells, as it turns out. And we now know that, in fact, even with a lot of aluminium, in a deodorant, it's really not absorbed into the bloodstream to do anything that changes your blood chemistry whatsoever. So we do not have a concern about that. I do want to reassure everybody, because I know people are worried about it. I'd want you to chill. It's not a problem.
That is so reassuring. I'm so glad to hear it. And so the other thing you said is to choose a really strong antiperspirant deodorant.
Yeah, I mean, ideally we'd want 20% aluminium. It's really hard to tell which ones have what.
Yes, yes. Well, the Rexona today that we've been launching, the Rexona Clinical Protection is their highest strength on the market. So they haven't divulged exactly what percentage it is, but the idea is, from what I understand, that the aluminium salts go into the follicles and create a gel so that the sweat, it tells your sweat glands that it's full. That's how they work, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're meant to put it on at night, go to sleep when your body is at rest, when your body temperature isn't all over the place, and then when you wake up, it's still working. So that's one way you can do it, and then if you're sort of nervous about that, you can actually apply a deodorant over the top.
Yeah, I mean, you could use the same thing the next morning, or you could just go for a cheap new boot sort of one just first thing in the morning. But it is important to apply it at night, because if you only ever use it first thing in the morning after a shower, because you're hot and sweaty after a shower, and you'll almost wash it all away, which is a bit of a waste. So
that's a good
you want
tip.
to use it at night.
Yeah, use it at night, dry the area well. Awesome. Well, I think I've learned a lot today, so thank you, Dr. Ginni. It's been great, and I hope you did too.
Have another lunch together.
Yes, let's do it. Thanks.